My name's Jennifer, a 32-year-old working professional. My husband Donnie is a 30-year-old employee, and we tied the knot 2 years ago. While he might come off as somewhat unreliable, he's a gentle soul who's perfectly capable of handling housework. I'm a driven working woman, gaining satisfaction from my work and the results I achieve. I work in the New York metropolitan area, a meritocratic environment where hard work is rewarded. However, there are possible relocations and no precedent for maternity or parental leave. Female employees tend to resign upon getting married or having children. I, too, preferred work over housework and initially had no intentions of getting married. When Donnie proposed to me, saying he wished to marry me, I turned him down, stating, "I like my current job. I'm a section chief now, but I want to aim higher. I can't imagine settling down or having kids." Yet Donnie understood me, promising that we would share housework and wouldn't have kids. Eventually, I gave in to his understanding nature and agreed to get married. We both work, so sometimes we don't exactly split the chores as planned, but we help each other out, and I think we manage pretty well. We've had our share of annoying comments from my in-laws like, "Prioritize your home over your work," or, "Aren't you gonna have kids?" But it's not too troublesome since Donnie always stands up for me. Living with Donnie has been a pleasant experience, and I've come to appreciate the beauty of married life. Then one day, I was called by my supervisor, the department manager, for a potential transfer to a branch office. He asked,
"What do you think? The place of work would be a regional branch, but you'll be called back to headquarters after 2 years. You'll be a section chief at the transfer location, and if you keep up the good work, promotion is guaranteed upon your return. You could even become the first female department head. Not a bad offer, is it?"
It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that acceptance or rejection of this transfer determines if one is on the promotion track in my company. Everyone who's progressed to department manager or beyond has experienced a transfer. If refused, one would remain a section chief, with demotion or transfer to an irrelevant position being a possibility. Before marriage, I would have grabbed this opportunity without hesitation. But now, as a married woman, I felt restrained. I told my department manager, "Thank you for considering me. I personally would like to consider this positively. However, since this involves a transfer, I would like to discuss it with my husband. Could I get back to you after that?" He responded,
"Oh, right, you're married. You can choose between going alone or moving with your family. Discuss it properly. I'll be expecting a positive answer."
Upon returning home, I discussed this with Donnie. "I've been offered a transfer. I might have to go to the countryside, but if I work hard for 2 years, I can return here. If I continue to perform well, I can get promoted." "I want to accept this offer if you're okay with it, Donnie. We can either move together or I can go alone. What do you prefer?" Donnie seemed surprised at first, but after some thought, he responded,
"Your dream can come true if you accept this transfer, right, Jennifer? I can't move with you because I have work here, but don't worry about me and go for it."
With Donnie's encouragement, I informed the company that I would be moving alone for the transfer, and I began negotiating terms and conditions. As a result, the company agreed to cover my relocation expenses. Factors such as being treated as on duty during commute days when returning home from my remote work location, and an overall decent benefits package convinced me to accept the transfer to the branch office. Then I officially received the transfer order and decided to relocate to the countryside. It seemed I could rent a company apartment at a low price, so that's where I decided to live. On the day of the move, the movers had already transported my stuff, and my husband came to see me off at the station. "Thanks for seeing me off. I'll be in touch regularly and we'll try to come home as often as possible."
"Yeah, I'll be waiting. Just because you're working remotely, don't go overboard."
"You too."
"It's about time. Take care."
"Okay, I'm off." And thus my life as a remote employee began. I planned to return home during long holidays and slower weeks, but unexpectedly, trouble arose at the branch office right after my transfer.
"I can't work under a woman.
I can't trust someone who just came out of nowhere." I hit a local barrier as the employees wouldn't acknowledge me. I was the subject of baseless rumors. My instructions were not followed, and even my phone calls were not transferred. During such times, a serious mistake occurred in a project that a subordinate had been advancing, deliberately excluding me. The subordinate in charge was pale with shock. Of course, as his supervisor, this was my responsibility. I was caught up dealing with the problem, apologizing, not just recovering the lost ground, but also needing to improve relations with the subordinates. My supervisor, seeing my plight, gave me some advice. I've experienced a transfer myself, so I understand your struggle. It may seem unfair, but you can't force your correctness here. It's important to communicate well, understand others, and make connections horizontally. Taking my supervisor's advice, I worked on creating horizontal connections by spending more time with everyone at the branch. I had not joined the neighborhood association, but I learned that the company's rental housing was part of a neighborhood association group, so I joined there too. Before I knew it, I was struggling to find personal time and couldn't make it back to my home where my husband was waiting. I kept in touch with my husband, but after a few months of working remotely, it became difficult to reach him at night, by phone or through text.
I'm working late every day because it's tough at work. I was tired and fell asleep.
Since my husband said things like that, and I was also busy, I listened without suspecting anything. Focusing more on my work, I continued to immerse myself. One time during a long holiday when work was slow, I decided to return to my home in New York at short notice. However, I couldn't reach my husband by phone or text, so I returned from my remote work location without notice. When I opened the door to my home for the first time after a long time, something felt odd. Then, a woman I didn't recognize rushed to the door, saying, "Justin, welcome back. If I knew you were coming home early, I would have prepared." The woman and I, seeing each other, were shocked into silence. Breaking the silence, the woman was the first to speak. "May I ask who you are?" "And who might you be? This is my home."
"There must be some mistake. I live in this house."
After arguing back and forth without resolution, we decided to step outside to check the house number. To my surprise, the nameplate was the custom one I had ordered. "The key fits, the nameplate's correct. This is my house. I'm gonna go in."
"Wait, what do you mean? Stop it."
Ignoring the women's protests, I pushed past her and made my way into the house. Once inside, I noticed everything had changed. The curtains, the furniture, all the interiors. There was a framed photo in the living room of my husband and the woman at a theme park. Mugs I had never seen before in the kitchen. Unfamiliar toothbrushes and skin toner in the bathroom and women's shampoo and conditioner in the shower. The bed linen was a design I'd never seen before, and there was nothing of mine left in the wardrobe, just the woman's clothes. My husband's belongings were hidden in a room at the back of the house, as if the woman had moved in and taken over. While I was standing there shocked, I heard the front door open.
"I'm home. Oh, Lola, did you invite a friend over?"
"Justin, thank God you're back. This woman just barged into our house." The man that the woman had chosen as Justin was unmistakably my husband. Seeing me, my husband was startled.
"What are you doing here?"
"Donnie, since when did you become Justin? Can you explain what's going on?" I confronted my husband. "What are you talking about? This is Justin, right? Justin?"
"Well, you see, I mean..."
Pressed by both of us, my husband was flustered. "Lola, this man's real name is Donnie. Isn't that what's written on your driver's license? And I'm Donnie's wife, Jennifer."
"That's a lie. He said he was divorced."
"Donnie, you're gonna explain everything clearly, right?" "Jennifer, you hadn't come home much and I was lonely.
So I casually signed up for a dating app and met Lola."
"I see. So Justin is your alias on the dating app?"
"No, that's not it. I thought it would be a problem if my real name came out, so I used a fake name, keeping my last name the same."
"And why did you lie about being divorced?"
"In Lola's dating app profile it said, I've only ever attended all girls schools and have never dated a man before. Looking for someone who's willing to be serious about a relationship with the goal of marriage." That really tugged at my heartstrings, so I lied about being divorced to woo Lola, hinting at marriage, and we started living together.
"Huh? Why would you do something like that?" At that point, my husband defiantly started to justify his actions.
"It's your fault for always being away for work. It's natural for a man to desire a woman. We've been leading separate lives because of your business assignment and the overtime and weekend work. I just wanted a warm home where my wife would be waiting for me with dinner ready when I come home."
I was shocked at this confession, as I'd always thought of my husband as understanding towards my work. But that doesn't make what you did right. What you did is the lowest of the low. If you wanted to be with another woman, you should have divorced me first. Why didn't you do the right thing?
I loved you both. I never planned on leaving either of you.
After all you've done, it was obvious I would find out when I came back. It's unbelievable that you thought you could hide and deceive me.
What? It's your fault for breaking your promise and not coming back here. If you'd just come back, I wouldn't have even thought about cheating.
What the heck? I've explained to you that work has been really tough and I couldn't help it. Our argument devolved into a shouting match, while the woman my husband was cheating with stood there, pale as a ghost. The other woman realized she'd been deceived by a married man and dragged into his childish game. So it was all a lie. You've made a fool of me. I'm leaving right now.
Lola, wait, it's not what you think.
My husband tried to stop the other woman, who was packing her things and about to leave, but his attempt was brushed off. Don't touch me with your filthy hands. I can't believe a single word you say. Cursing my husband, the other woman left for her parents' home. I decided to punish my husband for this, gathering as much evidence as I could and bringing it back with me. Once I returned to my work assignment, the first thing I did was hire a detective to investigate my husband's mistress. The investigation revealed the woman was the daughter of an executive at my husband's business partner. I had a lawyer send documents proving the affair to both my husband's home and the other woman's parents. Upon receiving the documents, my husband protested, saying he didn't want a divorce. So I prepared myself for a long battle, even considering taking the matter to court. The other woman's family contacted my lawyer, and we decided to meet at their office. The other woman and her parents showed up and apologized to me.
We're so sorry. Even though we didn't know about it, our daughter has caused you so much trouble. Our daughter is very serious and sheltered, so she's naive about the world. We're trying to arrange a marriage for her with someone we approve of, but she longed for a freer love. She met your husband without us knowing and got carried away without really knowing who he was. She said she met a divorced man on a dating app and wanted to move in with him. We told her to stop seeing this man, but she didn't listen. She was so caught up in her fantasies, she ran away from home to be with him. Our daughter was shocked to learn she was the other woman, and blames herself. She's now attending therapy. We're willing to pay you a settlement of $50,000, and we ask that you keep this matter to yourself.
The other woman and her parents shook hands with me firmly. I understand your feelings. I will accept your apology on one condition. I'm preparing for a divorce, but my husband refuses to agree. If you're willing to cooperate when it comes to providing testimony if this goes to trial, I'll agree to the settlement.
Okay, we'll cooperate, but our daughter is young and we don't want a permanent record if this goes to court. Is there any other way we could assist you in punishing him? Luckily or unluckily, his workplace is our client.
So, in an unexpected twist, the woman my husband cheated with and I joined forces. We conspired to teach him a lesson. His workplace would soon face a blow because he'd angered an executive at one of their client companies. This mess, of course, would be pinned solely on my husband. Back home, his parents, oblivious to the turmoil, were trying to reach out to him as they always did.
Jennifer is not answering our calls and she won't return them either. Is she so engrossed in work that she forgot about us? When is she coming back? We miss seeing our grandchild. Mom, you don't understand. I cheated on Jennifer while she was on her assignment, and now it looks like we're heading for a divorce. His mother responded, That woman who neglects Johnny to focus on her job is to blame. Maybe it's better if you break up with Jennifer and get back together with the woman you had an affair with.
Apparently, my in-laws figured that the other woman's family seemed wealthier than ours. So, they sided with my husband and his lover, launching a barrage of attacks against me. They repeatedly called me, but I blocked their calls. They started calling me at work. When I refused to speak to them, they came to my workplace, creating a scene and causing a ruckus.
Please let go of our son. It's because you're such a woman that our son had an affair. He'd be happier with his lover, so stop getting in his way.
And I said, What on earth are you talking about? I want to divorce Donnie. He's the one who's refusing. Besides, the woman he cheated with has no intention of getting back with him. After all, he tricked the daughter of a business executive into dating him. They're pretty angry. It's going to be a lot of trouble. The moment they realized their son had angered a major client, my in-laws suddenly switched sides and tried to cozy up to me. Oh no, we didn't know it had come to this. We must have misunderstood. We're sorry. Our son is a fool, but he's remorseful. You'll forgive him, won't you, Jennifer? I must decline. You just finished berating me, and now you're asking for my forgiveness? Please leave. They refused to leave, so I had them escorted out by security. Since they had caused a commotion, my company decided to sue them for business obstruction. After all that, I finally received my compensation from my husband and got my divorce. The other woman's family also demanded compensation for violation of her chastity and her psychiatric treatment costs. With the loss of his standing at the company due to his mistakes, and having to pay hefty compensations, my husband was now drowning in debt. He couldn't afford to quit, and he was cornered. 2 years had passed since my assignment started when everything finally settled down. I finished my assignment successfully and was getting ready to return to the main office. My hard work had paid off, and I had been promoted to the position of department manager. Had I not taken the assignment, I might still be living in a loveless marriage. But I guess a man like him would have had an affair sooner or later, and I would have clashed with his parents. I've realized that I really am better suited for work than family life, and I'm incredibly fulfilled and happy now.
Dad, Mom is falling at the mouth and collapsed. Help!
Half an hour after I ate the cake that my husband had brought home to celebrate our anniversary, I found myself keeling over. Despite our daughter's desperate pleas for help, my husband responded indifferently. "Don't worry, she'll be fine." He wore an uncanny smile as he said this, and leaving me in my struggle and our daughter in tears, he walked out. He must have gone to report to someone that this plan had worked out perfectly.
Mom, are you okay?
To our crying daughter left behind, I managed to respond, "I'm alright, sweetheart," and slowly got back up. With a reassuring smile, I calmed her down. I knew it. In reality, I'm the one who had succeeded in the plan. They, who are oblivious to this fact, must now witness their impending hell. I am Mia, a 32-year-old office worker. I live with my 6-year-old daughter, Emma, and my husband, Brian, who is the same age. We used to live a happy life with my husband being a caring and doting father. However, about a year ago, his attitude towards me gradually became cold and indifferent. I agonized over whether I had done something to offend him, but I couldn't think of anything. "You really haven't aged, haven't you? Well, you are a 32-year-old hag after all." "That's harsh. You're the same age as me, you know. Your clothes and makeup are old-fashioned and uncool. Can't you dress up more like other people?" I was baffled and hurt by his sudden and baseless criticism. He was not the kind of person who would say such insensitive things. At least, he hadn't been. Back then, I didn't understand what was happening and was simply hurt.
Mom is beautiful. Don't talk like that.
Emma quickly came to my defense, but Brian just clicked his tongue and left the house. His atrocious behavior wasn't limited to just words. There were many times when he ignored me entirely. Even if I woke up early to prepare lunch, he would get furious if he didn't like the side dishes. "What the? Don't put frozen food in there! You're slacking off." He even had the audacity to throw the lunch I had made into the trash can. "That's awful. I only included one frozen dish. I woke up early to prepare the other side dishes."
Yeah, Mom's cooking is delicious.
Emma would always stand up for me, but it seemed like even that annoyed Brian. "Emma might not understand this, but your mom isn't doing her job properly, and that's why I'm advising her."
That's not true. Mom is doing her best. It's Dad who's doing the wrong thing.
Humph. You've got our daughter well manipulated, don't you? Looking at Brian, who was glaring at me with disgust, I saw no trace of his former kindness. We were a couple who seldom fought, and I was at a loss for what could have caused this change in Brian. There was also another thing that was bothering me. Brian, who was never enthusiastic about work, started coming home late, citing overtime, and even began working on weekends. Could he be having an affair? I had a bad feeling about his suspicious behavior, but I had no evidence, and a part of me wanted to believe in him. He was still providing for our family and was a kind father to our daughter, so I kept hoping that his current foul mood would pass and he would return to his kind self. However, one day something troubling happened. When I updated our passbook, which we were saving separately for Emma's future education expenses, I found that the money had decreased. Over the past half year, $500, then $1,000 had been withdrawn, totaling to $10,000. The only other person who could use this money was Brian. The money we've been saving for Emma has decreased. Did you withdraw it? Yeah, I lent it to a friend who was in debt. Who is this friend you're helping by taking on their debt? That's none of your business. Brian said this dismissively, showing no signs of remorse. Moreover, it was strange that he frequently withdrew money in several installments to lend to his friend. That money was for Emma's future. So what? It's my money because the account is in my name. Stop complaining. That's not right. I work too and have been depositing money into that account. Shut up. Brian suddenly shouted and threw the remote control that was on the table. It flew swiftly past my face. What are you doing? That's dangerous. Being a wife. How dare you boss me around? You should just obey me. In his excitement, Brian wouldn't listen to anything I said. Our relationship continued to become strained. How did things come to this? What should I do? Concerns about how to deal with Brian crossed my mind, and the idea of reconciliation seemed difficult. One night, as I woke up late, I heard Brian talking to someone on his cell phone from the balcony. Looking forward to executing it on our wedding anniversary. I was astonished by the following conversation. Is this a joke? Feeling a deep sadness at how his love for me had cooled off, at the same time, I felt a boiling rage. The next day, having confirmed Brian's betrayal, I decided to open the computer he always used in his study. I remembered the password as I had borrowed it only once a long time ago. As I nervously checked the contents of the computer, it appeared that Brian was indeed having an affair, and there were numerous message exchanges with an unknown woman. I was shocked when the reality I had suspected was placed before my eyes. Furthermore, from those exchanges, I discovered Brian's shocking plan. So that's what it was. Well, I have a plan too. Having learned of Brian's plan, I devised a strategy. As expected, a few days before our wedding anniversary, Brian suddenly started being nice to me. For me, who had been subjected to verbal abuse from him, it felt disgustingly weird, and I realized that he was about to execute his plan and was making preparations. Our wedding anniversary is coming up. Oh, you remembered? Of course. It's an important anniversary for us. I've been having some problems at work lately, and I've been cold to you. I feel bad about that. As he made the obvious excuse, Brian was arching his eyebrows dramatically. Is that so? Maybe I haven't been considered enough. I'm sorry. No, I appreciate you. Let's have a fun day on our wedding anniversary, just the family. I'm happy. Thank you. I'll make a feast. I was pretending to be deceived and acting happy, but I felt lonely. It would have been nice if this was true. I would have felt genuinely happy listening to my husband's words, and then the day of our wedding anniversary arrived. I prepared lots of dishes that Brian and Emma loved and waited.
Wow, it looks delicious. I can't wait for Daddy to come home.
Emma was overjoyed and danced while humming. I felt sorry for my happy daughter who didn't know what was about to happen. Eventually, Brian came home and presented me with a bouquet and a cake. It's not flashy, but I thought it's modest like you, so I chose it. Looking at the bouquet offered to me, my heart skipped a beat. Brian had made a good cover-up, but I knew that wasn't why he chose this flower. Could you put it in a vase right now? I understand. Thank you for the beautiful flowers. After arranging the flowers and having a pleasant meal, it was finally dessert time. The cake Brian bought was 3 kinds of cakes: chocolate, strawberry, and cheesecake. Seeing this, I intentionally spoke to my daughter. Hey Emma, I want to eat chocolate cake today. Could you let me have it?
But Emma always eats the chocolate. But okay, today I'll let you have it.
I did not miss Brian's sudden shudder as he heard our conversation.
Well, I'll have the cheesecake.
Emma, wait a second. When my daughter tried to take out the cake, my husband stopped her in a panic. He struggled to find a reason for his startled daughter. Well, the cheesecake seems to have a bit of alcohol in it. Emma should avoid it. The shop assistant told me so. Brian rushed to explain, quickly grabbing the strawberry cake before Emma or I could. His panic was almost comical. You're eating that? Yeah, I love strawberries. Huh, that's news to me, I responded. Meanwhile, Emma was elated, eagerly beginning to feast on her beloved chocolate cake. Upon seeing me select the cheesecake, Brian smirked and quickly devoured his portion. As I reached for my cake, he watched, swallowing hard. Hey, it's hard to eat when you're staring so much. Why don't you and Emma go bathe first? I want to savor my cake. Brian laughed it off and excused himself, taking Emma to the bath. All right, time to enjoy my cake, I announced audibly on purpose. When Brian emerged from the bath later and saw the remains of the eaten cheesecake, his face softened with relief. 10 minutes later, my chest hurts. Help me.
Mom, are you okay?
I began clutching my throat and collapsed on the dining room floor, feigning agony.
Papa, Mommy's foaming at the mouth and collapsed. Help!
A terrified Emma called to Brian, who was watching TV in the living room. Yet despite the sight of me suffering, Brian remained cold and said, Don't worry, just leave her.
Papa!
With that, he left the house, leaving a distraught Emma with a fallen me. I knew instantly where he was heading. Upon confirming that he had indeed left, I stood up, just as I thought. Seeing her mother recover from the pretend episode so quickly, Emma was taken aback.
Mom, are you okay?
Emma, sorry, it was a prank. With that jest, Emma broke into a mix of laughter and tears. One after I tucked Emma into bed, the sound of the front door opening echoed. When my husband came home, he called my daughter's name to the room where the lights had gone out. Emma, are you there? I've brought Mama medicine. It's going to be okay now. From the shadows, I quickly moved behind Brian, tapping his shoulder from behind. What do you mean it's going to be okay? Ah! Brian shrieked in shock, apparently dropping to the floor from the surprise. Why are you still alive? Catching himself, Brian hastily began to make excuses. No, when I saw you collapse, I ran outside to call for help, but there was no one, so I thought I'd go and buy some stomach medicine. I see, how kind of you. Right? I'm relieved to see you're feeling better. Seemingly under the impression he had successfully deceived me, his face relaxed. I was not fooled, however. You've got some nerve spewing such lies. So, where's this stomach medicine you bought? Did I forget it at the pharmacy? I could only shake my head at Brian's feeble attempts to lie his way out. And then, I silently pulled out my phone from my pocket and played a recorded audio file.
Soon I'll be together with you, and the money will come in. Is that flour really that dangerous? I need to make sure our daughter doesn't accidentally eat it.
Listening to this, my husband's face turned ashen. Where did you get this? About 2 weeks ago, you were talking to someone on the phone on the balcony late at night, remember? It was a suspicious conversation, so I immediately recorded it. But you ate the cake! You were foaming at the mouth and fell over. How? Of course, I wouldn't eat it knowing it was poisoned. I just pretended to eat it. I have kept the cake as evidence. The foam was meringue made from egg whites. I held up a cheesecake in a plastic bag to show him. You tricked me! It was you who tricked me, Brian. I knew all about your plan from checking your computer. Brian's plan was to present me with a bouquet and cake for our anniversary, pre-coat the cake with the poison from the flour, and attempt to take my life. It was a cunning plan where even if the police investigated, they could explain that the poison got into my mouth because I had handled the flowers when arranging them in the vase, and ate the cake without washing my hands. Suddenly, Brian approached me with the look of sheer malice. Hand over that evidence. Hold on. Even if you try something, it's nonsense. The police will be here soon, as I've already reported you. Plus, this room is under surveillance. Everything has been recorded. What? You're lying! Wait! Suddenly panicked, Brian clung to me in desperation. I'm sorry. I was persuaded by a woman. I didn't want to do it. Please tell the police that it was a misunderstanding. It's too late. But Emma is here. Are you okay leaving her without a father? It's better than her being with someone who would attempt to take a life. Please, I beg you, from now on, I'll be a good husband, a good father. Brian was now a pitiful sight. Kowtowing with his forehead grinding on the floor, screaming while shedding tears and snot. But even seeing him like this, my heart didn't waver in the slightest. At that moment, the police arrived, and Brian was taken away, still screaming and crying. After that, both my husband and his mistress were found guilty of attempting to take my life. Of course, I divorced him, demanding $2,000 in damages and $10,000 in child support, which his parents kindly paid me. His family said they would make him work under strict surveillance and repay the money after he is released from prison. I also demanded $2,000 in damages from his mistress. Her parents paid me on her behalf, but I heard she was disowned. She was a new employee at Brian's company and was fired along with him. After paying for her crime, a difficult life awaits her. Emma and I have returned to my parents' house and are living a peaceful and happy life. To protect my daughter from getting hurt, I told her that her father went far away for work. Receiving all the love from me and my parents, my healthy growing daughter makes me want to continue raising her with all my might. I didn't expect you to be able to afford such a place. Great job, dear. We don't mind moving in here with you. I was puzzled at my mother-in-law's words. Excuse me? With this, I don't mind not divorcing you. I'm single now, you know? My name is Lucy, 35 years old. I'm a doctor at a women's health clinic. I live 15 minutes drive away from my workplace in a nice apartment complex, where I live with my husband William and his parents. I married William 5 years ago. At that time, he told me, if we get married, we'll have to live with my parents. I'm an only child, and I have to take care of them. I knew from the time I was dating William that he was an only child, and I was prepared to live with that, so I replied, of course, that's not a problem. So, when I married William, we rented a slightly larger apartment and started living with his parents. When we first started living together, his parents told me, you're a doctor, Lucy. It must be busy, right? Your father-in-law and I will take care of the household chores and the other things. Just focus on your work. They took care of all the cooking, cleaning, and other chores. Thanks to that, I was able to concentrate on my work. I thought the same was true for William. But half a year later, that drastically changed. Suddenly, William quit his job. Startled, I asked him, "What happened? Why did you quit?" Then, William said, "Well, I think I've done enough. I want to quit here to take a break, and then start again. Plus, even if I quit, we won't have trouble making ends meet with your earnings." Why would you do something like this without discussing it with me? You can't guarantee that you'll find another job, right? What if something happens to me? There's no point in saying things like that. We have savings, so we'll be fine. Fine, but... Then, the one who stepped into the conversation was my mother-in-law. Now, don't be so hard on him, Lucy. William has been working hard so far, so he deserves a little break, don't you think? All you have to do is make up for his absence by working harder. Her words left me speechless. I had also been working hard, and how on earth was it fair to suggest that I should work even harder while William took a break? That's ridiculous. It's not like William was the only one having a tough time. At my words, my mother-in-law's face changed. Suddenly, she raised her eyebrows and said, "Now, let me tell you something, Lucy. You're not the only one who has it tough. While you were at work, your father-in-law and I were taking care of the house. We were also working. That, too, without any breaks. If you're going to talk like that, we'll stop doing all the household chores. You can manage on your own from now on." What? Leaving me stunned, my mother-in-law and William left the room to watch TV in the living room. From that day on, I was left alone to handle the household chores and my job. No one else would do them. My in-laws often ordered takeout for meals, perhaps because they'd get hungry if they didn't prepare anything. And they would often order expensive dishes like sushi and soon started demanding me to leave more money for food expenses. "Lucy, please, leave enough money for us to eat. Do you want us to starve? Please try to cut down on the food expenses." Even when I asked them to cut down on the food expenses, my mother-in-law would retort, "How cruel of you to ask us to cut down on food expenses while we're staying home without any luxuries. Learn to take care of your in-laws." "I didn't know you were such a cold person. Maybe we should get a divorce," he said. I was so fed up that I started leaving more money for food, and my in-laws and William lived a life of eating whatever they wanted. One day, during my work break, I went to a gas station near my hospital to do some quick shopping. When I was about to pay at the counter, I realized I didn't have my card. It also seemed like there was less money in my wallet. For a moment, I was puzzled, and then I rushed home immediately after work. When I got home and rushed into the living room, there was a brand new large television. "Oh, welcome back, Lucy. You're early today." "Why are you in such a rush?" "Oh, Lucy, isn't it nice?" All three of them had malicious smiles on their faces. "What is this? How did you afford this?" "We had savings, obviously." "Savings?" That's when my mother-in-law spoke up. "Oh, Lucy, we didn't know you were saving so much for us. You should have told us earlier if you're going to be such a dutiful daughter-in-law. Now we can buy a lot more things. You finally proved yourself useful as a daughter-in-law." I found my card on the table. "My card? So, did you use my savings? But how did you get the PIN?" "It's not hard to figure it out. It's only natural. We're married after all." My mother-in-law looked pleased, said, "Oh, you really do love William, using his birthday as the PIN. Honestly, I thought you didn't care about him at all, but you've proved me wrong." But it's not that I set the PIN thinking of William. I just hadn't changed it since we got married. There's no way I could love William as he is now. Then, my mother-in-law and William, getting carried away, said, "Well, you haven't acted right as a daughter-in-law so far, so there's no point in making a fuss about this. The only way you can honor us is with money. Just quietly hand over your savings to us. From now on, please hand over $4,000 a month. From now on, don't squirrel away your money behind our backs. Make sure to give us our fair share," William had the audacity to add. Infuriated by their brazenness, I retorted, "This isn't a joke. Why should the money I earned go to your pocket money? If you want money so badly, work for it. This goes for you, mother-in-law and father-in-law too. Please have some decency and think about the household finances before you try to extort my money." Stunned, the three of them fell silent for a moment. But it didn't take long for my in-laws to snap back. What an insolent daughter-in-law you are! Is that how you address your mother-in-law? We can't sense any gratitude. We don't need a daughter-in-law like you for anything other than money. What an audacious remark from a daughter-in-law whose only worth is her money. There's a limit to disrespect, fumed my father-in-law. Enough of your nonsense, William yelled and went to his room. I thought he had gone for good, but he came back to the living room holding a piece of paper which he thrust at me. I have something for you. It was a divorce paper. What's more, William's name, as well as my in-laws' names, were duly filled in the witness section. Go ahead, file it if you dare, but you will have to move out of this condo. I can't be living with a stranger, you see. Unlike his wife, William is competent. Lucy, we can forgive your rudeness as a slip of the tongue now, but from now on, if you talk back to us even once, we'll really have William divorce you. The three laughed their souls out. The sight got my blood boiled with anger. But so did an equal measure of joy. But it's too early to get back at them. Suppressing my urge to leap for joy, I said, well, I'll start moving out some of my stuff and other essentials, and headed for my room. My in-laws and William looked puzzled. Did they think I would apologize out of desperation if they mentioned divorce? What a naive thought. The divorce papers even had a signature on them. I quickly packed up my valuables and said, I'll be leaving now. Please don't come to me even if you are in trouble. With that, I left my condo. Of course, taking the divorce papers with me. I stayed at a nearby business hotel that night. I canceled the card William had used online. When I checked my balance, the card, which once had over $10,000, only had $3,000 left. I really wondered what they had spent so much money on. My savings are not limited to that account. Just in case, I have ample savings in 2 other accounts as well. While it hurt to have $7,000 spent, I thought it was inevitable if it meant cutting ties with that family. And the next day, I went to the city office first thing in the morning and filed the divorce papers. The divorce papers were accepted, and when I checked my family register certificate just to be sure, I was indeed divorced. Finally, I had cut ties with that mother and son. While I wanted to jump out of joy, there were still things that needed to be done. I went to a real estate agency and took care of 2 matters. One of them was buying a house for myself using the money I had saved over the years. Through this experience, I truly understood the importance of living my own life freely. I never knew when or how that freedom might be taken away. I realized how important it was to take immediate action when I wanted to do something. So, I bought a new, single-story house, with its spacious living room, a practical system kitchen, and a walk-in closet. Everything was mine. I bought all the furniture that day and moved what I could into the house. The next 3 days were spent shopping. While it was hard to get everything I needed, it was the most fun I'd had in a long time. Replacing everything with new items required a substantial amount of money, but I thought it was a worthy expense for a new start. A few days later, around 8 p.m., my doorbell rang. I was in the middle of dinner and wondered who could be calling at this time. When I checked the intercom, there stood William, my former mother-in-law, and my former father-in-law, a sight that was almost nostalgic. I knew they'd come. With that, I went to the door and opened it. William immediately confronted me with great force. Hey, what the hell are you thinking? Moving out without telling anyone is crazy. At that, my former in-laws tried to calm him down. William, calm down. We said we would complain after we've calmed down. Remember, right, dear? That's right. Look, isn't it a good house? It looks more spacious and comfortable than our current condo. As they said this, the 3 of them barged into my house without permission. Wait a minute. Don't just barge into my place. I tried to stop them, but... Shut up. This is our house. What's wrong with us coming in? With that, the 3 of them went ahead and entered my house. The furniture is not to my taste, but the overall build is decent. I admit, it might be more comfortable than our current condo. I didn't expect you to be able to afford such a place. Great job, dear. We don't mind moving in here with you. Excuse me? We're telling you that we approve this condo. That we'll live here with you. We might even forgive your previous impotence. You're pretty low level as a daughter-in-law, but we could appreciate your thoughtfulness of preparing this place for us. I wonder if William would be satisfied with this. I guess I can forgive this. I don't mind staying married to you if we can live here. Excuse me? Who's your wife? And who's not getting divorced? Unsure of my question's intent, the 3 exchanged glances. I'm not married, you know. I'm single. Silence filled the room. Rather than being stunned, the three seemed to not understand the meaning of my words. Huh? What nonsense are you spouting? You think you can get away with all the disrespect you showed us? I shoved the divorce certificate right into William's stunned face. His and my in-laws' faces changed color upon seeing it. Lucy, how dare you do such a thing without consulting us? Do you think you'll be forgiven? Yep, I did. You gave it to me for that purpose, didn't you? Lucy, how dare you do such a thing without consulting us? Do you think you'll be forgiven? What do you mean forgiven? Your names were also clearly written on that divorce notice, weren't they? Writing your names there means you've made a decision, right? You were the ones who prepared the divorce papers in the first place, weren't you? William clearly told me to file it if I could, so I did. What's the problem? At that, the three kept their mouths shut, with red faces. I decided to press further. By the way, you're the ones who kicked me out. You seem to have forgotten, but the condo you guys live in right now is under my name. Now that we're strangers, I have no need to keep that contract, so I've canceled it. If you don't leave within a week, you guys will be evicted out of that place. You... Their fiery red faces quickly turned pale, and then I launched my final attack. I held my phone and made a call. Oh, hello, I'm sorry, but there are 3 people who forced their way into my house. Yes, I have trespassers here. Please come immediately. The address is... I had called the police. Everything was perfect. Don't think you'll get away with this. What a daughter-in-law. I can't believe you'd go so far as to call the police on your family. Remember this. How disrespectful of you. Each spat their parting words and fled from the house. And yet, I've been saying that I'm single. And so, my battle finally came to an end. I thought that those 3 would launch an attack at the hospital where I worked, but surprisingly, they never showed up. They seemed to have stubbornly stayed in the apartment even after the termination notice period of a week. And once I received a call from the real estate agent, however, I told them, those people are complete strangers to me, so it seems they were charged with trespassing and taken care of by the police. Afterwards, each of them was fined $1,000, but to no one's surprise, they didn't have such money. A relative from the countryside paid on their behalf, and apparently they were all forcibly taken to the countryside. By now, they are probably helping out on a farm for free at the relative's house. As for me, everything is going smoothly. My new life is so comfortable since I'd completely forgotten how wonderful living alone could be. Having been away from living for myself rather than anyone else for a long time, each day feels fresh. From now on, I plan to enjoy each day to its fullest, in order to make the most of my life.
Are you all packed up yet? I'll be making my debut as a model soon. Once the big money starts rolling in, I will need a family. Lily, my daughter-in-law, is an aspiring model, acting like she's already a star. She's been causing trouble for me and the rest of the family, taunting me relentlessly with comments like that. After one too many remarks, I finally reached my breaking point. I decided to move out. I'm leaving today. With those cold words, I packed my belongings and really left the house. As I did so, I vowed to make her regret her actions. My name is Amelia. I am a 60-year-old homemaker. My son, Brian, 33, married a kind woman named Lily. Lily is currently a stay-at-home mom, but during her college years, she was a part-time model and is quite beautiful. Brian and Lily live in an apartment separate from my husband and me. It seems like they're enjoying their married life. Until 2 years ago, I used to work part-time, but I had to quit because of a back injury. I've always had a weak back, so I knew it was only a matter of time. My husband, Oliver, reassured me, saying, "We can live comfortably on my salary, so there's no need for you to push yourself." So I decided to focus on our household chores. I am deeply grateful for my kind husband. One day, he fell ill and had to be hospitalized. Fortunately, he was discharged after about 2 weeks. But we were anxious about our future life. We're getting old, and we'll probably get sick or injured more often. There will be a limit to living on our own. I agreed with my husband's opinion. It's too early to go to a facility. I wonder if we could live with our son and his wife. I proposed this and called our son. I told him it wasn't necessary to live together immediately, but my son replied, "Wait a moment. I'll talk to Lily." And he hung up, then called me back 10 minutes later. "Lily said we could live together right away. I think that's a good idea. If something happens to you or Dad, Lily and I can handle it immediately." Upon hearing these words, my husband and I gratefully decided to live together with them. Since my son and his wife were living in an apartment, they moved to the house where my husband and I lived. We started living together with the intention of getting along well with the 4 of us. But this was the beginning of a tragedy. A month after we started living together, a large cardboard parcel was delivered to the house. It was Lily's. "This is my diet machine. I ordered it online because I wanted to take care of my health. Can you move this to my room?" I was confused. If I carry such a heavy thing, I'm likely to hurt my back again. Besides, Lily should know that I have a bad back. "I can't carry this because of my weak back. Could you ask my son or my husband? I'm sorry." Then Lily clicked her tongue. "You really can't do anything, can you? You use your bad back as an excuse and make me do all the housework." Until now, Lily had never said anything so terrible. She had been considerate of me. We had decided to share the housework. I am in charge of all the cooking, so it's not like I'm doing nothing. "Lily, what's wrong? Why are you being so mean?" As I was feeling sad about the sudden event, Lily said, "I've always hated you. You're always so serious and annoying, and I feel suffocated when I'm with you. I'm tired of pretending to be nice," and showered me with harsh words. I couldn't believe she felt this way. With a huff, Lily walked away, leaving me standing in shock. I was thinking of consulting my husband and son, but in the end, I decided not to. I don't want to worry them too much, so I decided to try to repair the relationship on my own. But even after a week, Lily's attitude didn't improve. She would verbally abuse me when we were alone and hurt me. While I was considering confiding in my husband and son, Lily suddenly made an announcement at dinner. "Actually, I'm thinking of becoming a model again. So, starting tomorrow, I will be more mindful to eat clean for my health and beauty. Please cooperate with me, everyone." My husband, son, and I were puzzled. "What's gotten into you all of a sudden?" When my son asked, Lily began to speak with a dreamy look on her face. "After graduating from university, I worked as a company employee and now I'm a housewife, right? But I actually wanted to work as a model. My parents were strongly opposed to it, saying it's not such a sweet world, so I reluctantly got a job. I thought this life was acceptable. However, every time I see celebrities of my age, my dream of becoming a model grows and I can't stop it." I just want to give it a shot. According to Lily, it seems you can be a model even in your 30s. We allowed her to do so if she really wanted to. However, from the next day, Lily began to complain about the food I cooked. She would come into the kitchen and complain. What? Today's dinner is hamburger? Please fix something more healthy with vegetables in them. But there's salad and vegetable soup. So I think our dinner's well balanced, and it's not good for your body to only eat vegetables. Even when I said this, Lily wouldn't listen. On top of that, she even started telling my husband and son not to eat high-calorie snacks. It's hard to go on a diet when someone's eating sweets in front of you. Please cooperate for the sake of my future as a model. That was her argument. Moreover, under the pretext of caring for her beauty, she started buying extremely expensive cosmetics and supplements. She began going out frequently, saying she was going to the gym, and so she stopped doing housework properly. I'm going to be a supermodel someday. I'm different from commoners like you. She kept making such pretentious statements, troubling not only me, but also my husband and son. Lily was spending so much that it was straining our finances. So the three of us even held a family meeting to plan some countermeasures. Various discussions took place there, and we decided on something. About a week after the family meeting, without any concern for our worries, Lily continued to behave as she pleased. On a weekday afternoon, when my husband and son were at work, I returned from shopping to find an unusual situation. The $2,000 I had saved in my drawer were gone. When I confronted Lily, she said with a smile devoid of any guilt, I used it to join a modeling agency. According to Lily, she applied for an audition at a modeling agency and was highly praised by a man claiming to be the president. He highly praised my beauty and assured me that I would definitely become a star. So, he said I needed $5,000 for special lessons. I used your money, Amelia. You were just going to use it for your retirement funds anyway, right? I paid the rest from my savings since it wasn't enough. I was furious with Lily's nonchalance. The truth is, I wasn't saving that money for myself, but she didn't know that. It's just too terrible to use someone else's money without permission. Lily continued to rudely dismiss my concerns. If you're unhappy, you can leave. I can't get any more money from you, Amelia. You're an ATM to me, and I have no more use for you. ATM. Lily did indeed say that. So you've been thinking of me like that? Yes. Please start prepping to move out. Even after that, Lily kept nagging, saying, Have you finished preparing to move out? I'm about to make my debut as a model soon. I don't need a family because I'm going to be making a lot of money. I couldn't stand listening to it any longer, so I decided to leave for a while. I'll leave today, I coldly stated, then packed my things and left the house. As I left, I resolved to make her regret this. I checked into a cheap business hotel for the night. In the evening, when their work would have wound down, I phoned my husband and son and told them everything that had happened that day. Both were speechless at Lily's audacity, and they agreed to punish her. My son told me a shocking truth, and I asked my husband to inform Lily about it. I have to work overtime today, but I'll tell her as soon as I get home. I'll make sure she apologizes to you, my husband promised. I had all the information I needed to get back at her. Now, all I had to do was get on my plan. The next morning, I received a call on my phone. It was from Lily. I'm sorry. I've been terrible all this time. I also apologize for the money from the drawer, she kept repeating. So she must have learned the truth about the money. I decided it would be better to have a face-to-face conversation. So I went home. When I returned, Lily had a swollen, tear-streaked face. I'm so sorry, Amelia. When I heard that the money in the drawer was for me. Yes, that money was for my son and his wife. They don't have any children yet, but they have talked about wanting to have them someday. Once upon a time, when the thought of having children came about, I had been saving a little at a time for their upbringing. Even if we didn't have children, I wanted this money to help support my son and his wife. I had intended to talk about it with my son and his wife one day, but Lily used it without knowing my intentions. Lily, I thought of you as a part of our family, because you're important to us. I didn't want you to struggle financially, and that's why I saved. But I must say, my affection for you has long since cooled, I said, glaring at Lily. Her many problematic behaviors had trampled over my affection for her. At a family meeting, I reported all the verbal abuses she made towards us. And yesterday, after my husband came home from work, he explained to Lily how the money had been intended to be used. Since it was already late, he told her to apologize first thing in the morning. Lily, regretting her actions, apologized numerous times. But I was not in a mood to forgive. Her wrongdoings didn't stop there. Brian, have you seen the results of the investigation? I asked my son. He shook his head. Not yet. I was thinking we would confront her all at once when you got home. Then my son brought out some photographs from his room and showed them to Lily. Hey, look at this. What the hell is this? He demanded. The photographs showed Lily clinging to a dashing man. Lily's face instantly turned pale. That's not it. He's the president of the modeling agency I just joined. There's nothing suspicious about our relationship, she denied desperately. But it clearly seemed like an affair. Ever since you started going out frequently, we thought something was off. We decided to hire a detective when we held a family meeting. We can't live with a woman who treats my mother so poorly and cheats on me. I'm going to divorce you. We're also going to ask for damages through a lawyer. If you have a problem with that, we're willing to take it to court. Lily, bombarded with my son's harsh words, slumped in defeat. Even my usually calm husband was furious and scolded Lily. My wife and Brian, they loved you seriously as a part of our family, and yet you frivolously stole my wife's money and even cheated on my son. I can't fathom what you were thinking. I can't think of you as a part of this family anymore. I was also filled with anger towards Lily. To think that you would hurt not just me, but my son as well. I've tolerated your terrible behaviors till now, but this is the end. You're definitely going to pay for this. My son handed her the divorce papers to fill out.
I'll submit this to the city office. We're now complete strangers. Don't ever come asking for help, he declared.
I'm sorry. The president was genuinely supporting my dream, and I was so happy. But when I become a model, I'll earn money and be able to pay the damages. Lily believed she could still become a model. There was one more thing I had to tell her. That president of the agency you've been getting along with, he's likely a scammer, I revealed. What? Lily widened her eyes in shock. That's a lie. He promised me he'd debut me and make me successful. She refused to believe. To Lily, who was still dreaming, my son showed her a piece of paper.
We asked the detective to investigate your affairs as well. It turns out this man has committed similar fraud in the past and has a criminal record,
he informed her. Lily couldn't believe it and took out her smartphone. That can't be. I have his number. I'll call him right now, she asserted. But no matter how many times she tried, the call didn't go through. Lily then brought out a business card she said was given by the president and showed us the address of the agency. Let's go here right now. We can prove he's not a fraud if we go there, she suggested. When my son took the business card and checked the address on his phone,
there's a factory at this address. There's no modeling agency there.
On my son's phone screen, a factory was indeed shown. Lily double-checked it with the business card in her hand numerous times, but she eventually began to shed large tears. So, I was deceived? What about my dreams? That man said I was 1 in 1,000. If everyone knew, why didn't you tell me? At Lily's outburst, my son wore a dumbfounded expression.
We received the investigation results after work yesterday. We wanted to discuss it with you when I got home, but you had already given him the money. Your lover has probably already fled somewhere, so the money might not come back. After all, it's not so easy to make a modeling debut, right? You're mature enough not to fall for such scams. Don't blame us when you're the one at fault.
I decided to add my 2 cents as well. It's good to have a dream, but you neglected your family because of it. Isn't that why a scammer approached you? Use this as a lesson to lead an honest life. Hearing this, Lily finally broke down in tears. I shouldn't have chased such a dream. It's all over now. Lily distorted her beautiful face and cried out loud without any regard for appearances. Seeing her in pain, I felt a sense of relief. That day, Lily had to leave our home. The 3 of us unanimously wanted her to leave as soon as possible. Just under 3 months, our days as a family of 4 had come to an end. She must not have imagined that the tables would turn when she drove me out. Serves her right. After that, Lily returned to her parents' house. But when they heard about the situation, they were furious, and Lily was disowned. I heard about this from Lily's father, Daniel, who informed me over the phone. I'm truly sorry for what my daughter did. I assure you, we won't provide any assistance to such a girl. It seems like Lily has no choice but to live alone from now on. Because she was blinded by her dreams, she has now fallen into a life of hardship. It's a fitting end for her. 2 months later, the scammer who deceived Lily was arrested. According to the news, he had deceived several young women using the same tactics and is headed to prison. He confessed to having spent all the swindled money, so it's unlikely that Lily would get her money back. It was a costly lesson, but maybe Lily will now live more responsibly. Lily managed to get a job at a private company, but having been a housewife for so long, she seems to be struggling a lot. Whether it's because of the lawyer's claim or not, Lily properly paid the compensation. I also had her return the $2,000 that she stole from me. She split her assets with my son, but with large expenses piling up, she fell into debt and seems to be in a serious financial straits. Perhaps due to the stress, she's completely lost her boasted beauty. She developed a lot more wrinkles and age spots and looks much older than her actual age. From here on, everything is what my son heard from acquaintances. I don't know if all of it is true, but she's likely living a difficult life. I hope she suffers as much as possible. The ones left behind, my husband and son and I, began living as a family of 3. We haven't moved and still live in a single-family home. My son and husband help with the housework on their days off, which is a big help. The other day, we had a fun time doing a barbecue in the garden for the first time in a long while. We're also planning to go on a hot spring trip during the next long holiday. Everyone got hurt because of Lily, but we've managed to recover. My son said he's had enough of marriage, so I don't think our family will be growing anytime soon. For now, I want us to live a relaxed life as a family of 3. Nonetheless, through this incident, I learned the difficulty of seeing a person's true nature. They say it's important to see what's inside a person, and I couldn't agree more. Also, I've decided to be wary of sweet talk and live my life earnestly.
Now that our child is born, let's have a baby shower. Since it's your first grandchild, please be generous with the gift money.
Gloating, I handed over an envelope with some money inside, only to receive a shrill response.
Just $300? Don't insult me. That won't even cover diapers.
Shocked, she turned pale and started to tremble. My name is Olivia, a 57-year-old office worker. My husband, John, runs an auto repair shop with our son-in-law, Mason, who married our oldest daughter, Ava. They specialize in luxury cars, which seems to be working out since the business is thriving. With a lot of demand from luxury car dealerships and high repair and inspection fees, Mason often cheerfully remarks, "You're really good at business. I need to learn from you and work hard too." Mason and Ava got married 5 years ago. He was originally an average office worker, but had a fondness for cars. He got his mechanic's certification and started working under John. We don't live together with our daughter and son-in-law, but since Ava recently started working at her husband's garage as a secretary, we see them almost daily. Though our house and the shop are separate, they're nearby,
so I drop by sometimes, and the four of us often hang out together. Mason is an outgoing person and easy to talk to. Anyone would think he's our real son. We do have a biological son, but ever since he left home for his job, we rarely see him. William is 2 years younger than Ava, and never took an interest in his father's job. After graduating from college, he joined a regular company. When he was in elementary school, he used to say,
When I grow up, I'll take over Dad's shop.
But as he got older, his mindset changed.
There's no way you can make a living working at a repair shop these days. I don't want to be covered in grease either.
John never intended to have William succeed him in the first place. Still, when William declared that he had no intention of taking over the business, he looked sad. John had hired several employees and was contemplating the future when Mason joined the business. It seemed like he started to think about what lay ahead. If there were no successors, he planned to give the employees a heads up so they could find work elsewhere. But with Mason in the picture, he intended to leave the business in capable hands. Ava never imagined that Mason would succeed her father, but she asked, taken aback yet relieved.
I knew Mason loved cars, but I never thought he'd become my dad's apprentice and take over. But since William never planned to take over, it's no problem, right?
My husband's business is doing well, which is probably why Ava is always asking me if William's going to ask for the shop later. Ava has a good reason to worry. William's wife, Emma, has a somewhat uncouth side. William and Emma got married 2 years ago, and even from the first time they came to our house to introduce Emma, she made quite an impression. The first thing Emma said when she arrived with William was,
This is a very blue-collar home, isn't it? Is this what self-employed people's homes are like?
My husband and I were so taken aback that we couldn't say anything in response. Ava, who was also present, seemed to be infuriated and immediately retorted, Who do you think you are? What are you saying to your fiancé's parents? However, Emma stood her ground, saying,
I'm just expressing my true feelings. Please stop picking on me before we're even married.
I tried to calm down the two women who were about to get into a fight, and attempted to proceed with the marriage introduction. But William said,
Just because we're getting married doesn't mean we'll live here or rely on you.
It seemed like William was not pleased with Mason helping out with his father's job and getting along well with us. Since Ava and Mason got married, William seemed to want to distance himself from us even more. Mason also didn't join us that day out of consideration, but William made a sarcastic remark saying,
Ava's husband isn't here today, huh? I thought it would be embarrassing if he showed up all greasy and dirty like he usually is. I'm relieved he's not here.
Although he said he wouldn't take over my husband's shop, he might not be happy that Mason, who isn't related by blood, would be the successor. Upon hearing William's words, I felt angry and retorted, Are you jealous of Mason? You were the one who said you wouldn't take over your father's shop. As I raised my voice, my mild-mannered husband calmed me down, saying,
Don't get so angry, everyone. Since William's fiancée came to introduce herself, let's try to get along.
As this was supposed to be a happy occasion, I also held back my anger and kept quiet. But then Emma said,
I don't mind. I have no intention of getting along with you anyway.
She spoke to us as if she was looking down on us. Ava and I, who had started to calm down at my husband's words, got angry again. Ava and I gave Emma a stern look, but she seemed to find it amusing.
You common folk are so quick to anger. As someone from an upper-class family, I've never been angry before,
she said cheerfully, boasting about being from an upper-class family. According to what William had told us, Emma's father is the director of a large company. I guess that's why she refers to us as common folk. The thought of such a woman becoming our daughter-in-law weighed heavily on us. Even my husband seemed to think that under such circumstances, a marriage greeting would be impossible. So he suggested to William and the others,
How about we wrap this up for today, seeing as this was just a meet and greet?
The two of them hurriedly left. After they had left, Ava was still fuming. What was with that woman?
She was boasting about being the daughter of an upper-class family. Just because your father's a company director, she can't get too ahead of herself.
Even my husband, who had been trying to calm us down, seemed to be stunned and said,
William sure has a tough person to marry. I'm worried about what's to come.
Sighing, he told us about how Emma had been a handful during the preparations for the wedding. The day before the wedding, Emma purposely came to our house and said, "Please make sure to wash yourself and your hair clean, since you work at a mechanic shop, future father-in-law. And please make sure to wear a dress that won't embarrass you, future sister-in-law. You do realize you're an ugly sister-in-law, right? So at least make sure your appearance is decent." She said this in a snide tone. I was about to yell back at her in anger, but my husband responded politely.
Understood. We'll make sure not to cause any trouble.
Emma seemed taken aback by this. She must have wanted to say more nasty things and watch us get angry. But she seemed to be unsure how to react to my husband's response and left with a dissatisfied look on her face. At the wedding the next day, Emma came in front of our family and said, "It's embarrassing for everyone to know your relatives, so please behave. And also, this area smells oily, and it's all because of you." She spouted her usual snide remarks. Mason, who had met Emma for the first time, said with a fascinated look,
"I'd heard rumors, but she's worse than I expected." Normally, Mason has long, unkempt hair and a beard,
but that day he had cut his hair and came dressed in a suit, so Emma had no complaints. However, I wish he had come in his usual work clothes with his long hair and beard, just to see how Emma would react. After the wedding, we didn't hear from William at all. Worried, I said, "I wonder if William is doing okay?" To which my husband responded,
"No news probably means he's doing fine." I was worried too, but if we contact him, that wife of his might get angry.
"Let's wait for them to contact us,"
he said, sounding resigned. When they had come for the marriage greeting, they had clearly declared that they did not want to associate with us, so it was hard for us to contact them. 2 years passed without any contact from William. But Emma's behavior at the wedding still came up in our conversations, whenever my husband and I and Ava and Mason were all together for a meal.
I don't think Emma knew who I was. No one introduced me to her. She probably saw me as some dirty relative,
Mason said, to which I replied laughing, "It would have been funny if you had come in your usual work clothes. With your messy hair and beard, she might have kicked you out." Everyone laughed heartily at this. At the wedding, the atmosphere had been so tense that no one had introduced Mason to Emma, and Mason had missed his chance to introduce himself. By now, Mason had completely blended in with our family, and it felt like we had a wonderful son even without William. Then all of a sudden one day, a heavy snowfall caused cars to get stuck everywhere. At my husband's shop, they received requests from customers to tow their cars, so they were very busy. The employees split up the work and attended to them. My husband and Mason had gone out on a request from a foreign car dealer my husband deals with, but when they came back from finishing the job, they both seemed downcast. Ava, who was worried, asked Mason what was wrong, but he just said, "No, it's nothing." He spoke as if nothing had happened, so I didn't think much of it. Then a few days later, William and Emma suddenly showed up at our house, and Emma was holding a baby in her arms. Seeing the baby sleeping in her arms, I couldn't help but break into a smile. And Ava, who happened to be visiting, also smiled and said, "Emma, you had a baby?" She reached out to touch him. Ava recoiled from Emma's hand, yelling, "Don't touch her with your dirty commoner hands. The smell from the oil will rub off." Seeing the baby made me forget, but indeed, even as a mother, Emma has not changed. I realized that as the atmosphere grew tense as usual, Emma said, "Now that our child is born, let's have a baby shower. Since it's your first grandchild, please be generous with the gift money." As she spoke in her usual sarcastic tone, I put $300 in an envelope and handed it to Emma on the spur of the moment. If I had known beforehand, I would have prepared more adequately, but she came so suddenly that I didn't have time to prepare money or ask what she wanted, so I could give it to her later. Snatching the envelope from me, Emma immediately checked the contents and shouted, "Are you kidding me? Only $300? That's not even enough for diapers!" Really loud. My usually mid-mannered husband suddenly took the envelope back from Emma, saying, "Don't you disrespect us. The father of that child isn't William, is it?" He yelled back with a ferocity I had never seen in him before. Moreover, he started saying that the child's father wasn't William, which left me utterly confused. At the sound of my husband's yelling, Mason, who had been in the back room, came in looking puzzled, but upon seeing Emma, Mason looked shocked, and when Emma saw Mason, she too looked startled and quickly tried to hide her face. Seeing Mason, my husband said,
"Seeing Mason, does that jog your memory? You'll remember him from when we towed your fancy minivan during the heavy snowfall, especially since you were complaining to Mason. I bet you haven't forgotten his face."
He addressed Emma, but Ava, William, and I still didn't understand, and we were all surprised. "Is the president you were with at the time doing well? Please tell him for me that if he's going to have an affair, he should do it when it's not snowing, or else he'll get caught." This was even more incomprehensible, but hearing the word affair, Emma and William's expressions suddenly hardened, and Ava and I looked at each other in disbelief. Emma hastily denied it, saying, "But what are you talking about? The heavy snow, the affair? You're not making any sense." But she was clearly flustered, a far cry from her usual self. At my husband's signal, Mason brought out his phone and started operating it. In the meantime, my husband explained to us.
On the day of the heavy snowfall, Emma and some president got stranded in a luxury minivan, and Mason and I went to rescue them. I didn't recognize Emma at first, but it struck me as odd that there was a baby in the car. I was wearing a mask, sunglasses, and had a helmet on, so she probably didn't recognize me. Mason, on the other hand, had long hair and a beard, so even with a mask on, you must remember him.
When my husband finished speaking, Mason said,
"Everything is on our car's dashcam, so she can't deny it."
He showed his phone to Emma. Emma, seeing the screen, gasped and immediately turned her face away from the phone, and Ava, William, and I stared at the screen. Indeed, Emma and a man we didn't recognize were complaining to Mason. "We have a baby on board. Move it already, you slacker." Emma was yelling in the screen. While my husband and Mason were putting chains on the expensive minivan, Emma and the unknown man were whispering to each other. My husband, with a scary look on his face, said, "The dashcam doesn't record sound, but I heard everything. William is such a fool for believing that the child is his, you guys said. Well, Emma, you're the fool for talking about your affair right in front of your father-in-law without even realizing it." As he was speaking, "Emma, what are you saying? Is this all true? Tell me." William suddenly yelled out. Emma stammered. Of course it's a lie," she answered with a forced laugh, but the paleness of her face seemed to say otherwise. Responding to Emma's excuse, Mason chimed in. "Didn't you say that you'd divorce William at the right time? I clearly heard you. You also said you'd make sure to get child support, right? You sounded pretty pleased about that." Mason also started speaking the truth. Upon hearing this, Emma became agitated, her hands shaking as she held her baby, and the baby started crying. Seeing her crying baby as an opportunity, Emma exclaimed, "Look what you did! The baby's crying because you're all mean to me. Enough is enough. I'm going home today." Saying this, she left William behind and stormed out. The abandoned William turned even redder in anger than the baby, but once Emma was gone, he seemed to calm down a little. "Dad, is what you said earlier true?" He asked his father for confirmation again. His father silently nodded, and Mason added, "Emma's lover is the president of a company that does business with our shop. I heard from some dealers that Emma accompanied him when he came to buy a car. Apparently, he bought a minivan because they were having a baby." He explained in detail. William buried his head in his hands and crouched down, but later, a DNA test proved that the child was indeed not William's. William immediately filed for divorce, but Emma, on the other hand, "Marrying a commoner like you was my mistake," she yelled defiantly. But the DNA test results showed that the father of the child was not the president, another lover, causing more confusion. It seemed that Emma had cheated with another man, and the child was apparently his, but the man was married. William claimed compensation in the divorce proceedings against Emma, but also sought compensation from her two lovers. Emma's family, who had boasted of their high-class background, turned out not to be that wealthy, and apparently had to borrow money to pay the compensation in the divorce proceedings. The reason she had an affair with the president was her aspiration for a high-class lifestyle, but unfortunately, Emma's remarriage with the president didn't happen. Far from remarrying, she was claimed for compensation for breach of engagement on his part. After parting ways with Emma,
It seemed that William had developed a distrust towards women. "I'll never get married again," he declared, starting to live alone. For my husband and I, our first grandchild turned out to be an illusion. However, we soon found out that Ava was expecting a child, and we as a couple were overjoyed. Mason, in a light-hearted joke towards my husband, said, "Rest assured, the baby is definitely mine." When the baby comes, we're going to start living together with Ava and Mason. It seems like we're in for a lively life.
Stop acting so high and mighty.
After being called out on her work behavior, the boss's daughter started giving me a hard time the next day. "Your presence is really getting on my nerves. Get a clue, old woman." Day after day of harassment wore me down, and her words led me to decide to retire early. However, things took a turn when our boss returned from an overseas trip. "What the hell is going on? Why isn't she here?" His words left his daughter dumbfounded. My name is Alice Ives. I've been working as an office worker at a local company since I graduated high school, and I've been there for 40 years now. A few colleagues who joined the company the same year I did left after getting married or switched to other jobs. Before I knew it, I was the oldest employee at the company. During that time, the company changed hands, and now David Turner, the son of our former CEO, is running the show. As the longest-serving employee, I often found myself fielding questions from other employees. "Hey Alice, can you look over these documents for our meeting with a client?" Or personal problems like,
I had a fight with my husband last night. I know I'm the one at fault, but I just can't bring myself to apologize. What should I do?
I've always enjoyed listening to people's stories, so I guess I was an easy person to talk to. There were many times when people thanked me for lending an ear, saying it really helped them clear their heads, and at some point I started being called the workplace mom. It's a little embarrassing, but it feels good to be relied upon. I had absolutely adored the homely atmosphere of our company and had resolved to dedicate myself to it until retirement. However, a dramatic change occurred in this harmonious workplace. During the months that our CEO was on an overseas trip, his daughter, Megan Turner, joined the company. After completing her training at one of our branches, she transferred to the head office administration department. At first, everyone was welcoming, and I was excited too, but it didn't take long for people to become fed up with her behavior. Megan severely lacked manners and common sense as a grown adult. She flaunted her status as the boss's daughter and didn't bother to do her job right. She was transferred here with the title of Assistant Section Chief, which she apparently forced upon the executives. No matter how much she's the boss's daughter, I felt disappointed in the executives who bowed to the demands of a second-year employee, but I couldn't voice such things. I wondered if the boss knew about this. It's hard to believe that our sincere boss would condone such behavior. Or maybe he just allowed her to do as she pleased because of his paternal affection. In any case, Megan caused considerable confusion with her selfish actions. Her behavior started to delay our work and affect our schedules, and the dissatisfaction among other employees kept piling up. Most of the consultations I received were about Megan.
Megan, she's just awful. She complains about her work, saying it's sloppy and half-hearted, but she doesn't do anything herself.
And you know what? She was actually preparing a document for a client the other day. It was so unusual that I looked over her shoulder, and it was full of mistakes. I couldn't let it be submitted like that, so I secretly corrected it for her.
Well, that's how it went. The executives couldn't even scold her properly because she was the boss's daughter and they were no help at all. The atmosphere in the company started to turn sour, and I feared that this could lead to a serious problem. Despite our concerns, Megan's reckless behavior did not change.
Miss Ives, I think I might quit this job.
Some people even started saying things like that. I knew something had to be done. The boss wouldn't be back for a while, and I couldn't wait that long. I figured I had to be the one to confront her since the executives were too timid. An opportunity soon came up. Megan was fiddling with her smartphone during work hours. If she did it sneakily, I could have been somewhat endearing, but she was doing it blatantly. Everyone around her had a look on their face that said, "Do your job." I approached Megan and said, "Miss Turner, it's time for work now. It's not the time to be playing with your phone, is it?" Megan looked surprised and raised her face, making a questioning face.
Look around. Everyone's working. Don't you think it's strange that you're the only one playing on your phone? She scowled even more. I'm our CEO's daughter, you know. You think you can talk to me like that? I sighed inwardly. Knowing that it wouldn't be easy to get through to her, that doesn't matter, for as long as you're being paid by the company, shouldn't you be working? Megan glared at me with a red face, then suddenly slammed her desk and stood up. You're annoying. Who do you think you are, acting so high and mighty? The other employees were holding their breath, watching us. I'm just saying what's right. If you think I'm annoying, it's probably because you know you're doing something wrong, isn't it? I didn't know if I managed to sound firm, but at least I said what needed to be said. After all, I'm not suited for giving sermons. Megan glared at me for a while, then said in a strained voice, "Just remember this, I'll make you regret talking to me like that." With that, she turned her back and walked out. For a while, everyone was silent, unable to move or speak. Then someone said, "Miss Ives, that was amazing," and the others started to talk.
Well done, Miss Ives. Really, it was a refreshing sight.
I just vaguely smiled back in response. I didn't think I said anything wrong, but there was no doubt that I had hurt her. I regretted not considering my words and location a bit more, but a shocking event awaited me that would sweep away this small regret. Megan, who had been humiliated in front of everyone, started to harass me.
"Miss Ives, please finish all this work by today,"
she said, dumping a large amount of work on me. Most of it wasn't urgent, and there was no need to finish it today. It was such a childish retaliation. Other employees offered to help when they couldn't bear to watch, but Megan didn't allow it. The workload was too large for one person to finish, so of course it meant working overtime. Seeing that, Megan spoke with a triumphant look.
"You work slow for someone who talks big, Miss Ives. Make sure you finish everything before you leave, okay?"
And so it continued. I kept myself going somehow, but the immense daily work, overtime, and insults almost broke me. Megan was probably waiting for my spirit to break. Seeing me weaken, she said, "You're just a nuisance. Wake up, Grandma." Seeing her face, I thought, this is it. I can't stay here anymore, in a place where someone hates me so much. I had planned to persevere until retirement, but I now decided to retire early. I submitted my retirement notice, and on my last day, while I was sorting out my things, other employees spoke to me.
"Miss Ives, I'm so sorry we couldn't help."
Everyone looked apologetic. "It's okay, I made this decision myself. Most importantly, keep your spirits up and do your best." As everyone was saying their goodbyes, Megan came in.
"Stop chit-chatting and get back to work, everyone. She's no longer a part of this company."
None of the employees responded and just looked at Megan with cold eyes. Then they said to me, in chorus, "Take care," and walked past Megan. Megan's reputation was already bad, but after forcing me into retirement, her position worsened even further. She didn't seem to realize it and still acted like a queen. Approaching me, Megan smirked.
"This is what happens when you go against me. Serves you right."
To that, I simply bowed my head and quietly said, "Thank you for everything." I couldn't forget the scornful look Megan gave me at the end, even after I left the company. I am genuinely curious to know how she ended up being like this. With that attitude, she'll only push people away. My family worried about me after I lost my spirit after leaving the company, but my heart was still heavy. One day, while I was aimlessly passing time, I received a call from President Turner. When I answered, wondering what it was about, he immediately started apologizing with tremendous force.
"Miss Ives, I'm so sorry.
I was speechless for a moment because of the suddenness.
My daughter did something terrible to you. I'm really sorry. I can't blame you if you're angry."
It seemed like the president thought I was angry and not speaking. "Sir, please calm down. I'm fine." When I said that, the president's voice on the other end of the call seemed to calm down a little.
"I know it might be too late to ask this, but would you consider coming back to the company? I won't let my daughter do as she pleases anymore."
For the moment, setting aside whether I should return or not, I agreed to make a visit to the company. The next day when I arrived at the company, the employees who spotted me quickly ran over. They filled me in on what had happened. The CEO, having returned from his overseas business trip, had noticed the unusual atmosphere hanging over the office. He wanted to hear from me about it, but I wasn't there. When he heard from the employees about Megan's behavior while he was away, he was furious. "Megan, what is this all about? Why is Miss Ives not here?" Megan, perhaps not expecting to be scolded, snapped back at her father.
"It's that old hag's fault for lecturing me. Everyone else thinks so too. They all disrespect me, the president's daughter, and take me for granted."
The CEO shouted even more at Megan's selfish response. "Enough! Just because you're my daughter doesn't mean you're entitled to behave like this. And what's this about being an assistant section chief? I don't remember assigning you to such a role. How dare you make up your own title?" Stammering in her response, Megan was caught off guard. It seemed the president immediately called me after. After ending the call, the president gathered the employees and apologized in front of everyone for his daughter's misconduct. I was concerned about Megan after hearing everything. "So how is Miss Turner doing now?"
"Her title was revoked. She's now in the CEO's office, having been summoned by him."
I said goodbye to the employee who gave me the information and headed for the president's office. There, Megan was being scolded by the president. When the president noticed me, he came over and deeply bowed his head. "Miss Ives, I'm truly sorry for this incident. Due to my incompetence, I've caused you trouble. Mr. Turner, please raise your head. It's all right. No, we need to make things clear. The president urged Megan, who was standing next to him, to apologize as well. Megan looked utterly crestfallen, as if salt had been rubbed in her wounds, muttered, I'm sorry. Not knowing what to say, I remained silent until the president spoke. I know it's a bit much to ask, Ms. Eyes, but could you return to the company? We need your expertise. The CEO was nearly on the verge of tears. Seeing him like that brought back old memories. I first met the president 40 years ago when I had just joined the company. He was still in middle school at the time. Since we were close in age, he found it easy to talk to me. He often came to the company to hang out and frequently sought advice from me about school, friends, future plans. Back then, we used to call each other by our first name. He looked up to me like an older sister, and I regarded him as a younger brother. That relationship remained unchanged as we grew up, and I've been his confidant in many matters since he joined the company. All right, but please stop apologizing. Unable to flatly reject the president's request, I decided to return to the company. I'm so relieved. Truly relieved. The CEO was rejoiced at my decision, but Megan, standing next to him, had a complex expression on her face. Well, that's expected. The person she disliked and caused to quit was coming back. Upon my return to the company, I was given the role of an advisor. Everyone welcomed me warmly, with some even tearing up at my return. It was a joyful moment, but there was one thing that bothered me. Of course, it was about Megan. She had been quiet and isolated since being scolded by the CEO. Given her attitude up till now, it was understandable. Despite my hesitation, I decided to talk to her. Miss Turner, can we talk for a second? She briefly raised her eyes to meet mine, but then quickly averted her gaze. I want to talk to you for a bit. Without waiting for her agreement, I began, and she reluctantly got up and followed me. What should I start with? As I thought, Megan spoke up first. What do you want? Her voice was visibly sullen, but I was relieved that she at least agreed to talk. It seems like you're not getting along with others. Without adding unnecessary comments, I simply stated, and Megan looked down in silence. I don't understand why someone as smart as you would treat everyone around you like that. You knew you were antagonizing them, didn't you? How can you know whether I'm smart or not? Megan retorted, but her voice lacked any spirit. I do know. Your father always bragged about you. Megan looked up surprised. It was true. Mr. Turner adored his daughter very much and was always proud of her. My daughter is beautiful and intelligent. Everyone in the company heard him say that often, and we all knew how much he loved her. Besides, you might not remember, but we've met before. Megan looked even more surprised. This company, now big enough to have branch offices, used to be a small family-run business. I had a good relationship with not just the current CEO, but also his father, the former CEO, and his wife. They were there to celebrate my wedding and childbirth, and when the president got married and Megan was born, I rushed to the hospital to celebrate her birth. We used to be close like family until she entered elementary school. Suddenly, something seemed to strike Megan's memory. Aunt Alice? At the nostalgic address, I found myself smiling involuntarily. That's right. Little Megan was an adorable child who would always cling to Aunt Alice whenever I visited. Do you remember Megan? Megan nodded over and over again. I remember Aunt Alice, who used to play with me when I was little, but since I entered elementary school, Aunt Alice stopped coming home. That's right. Around that time your father took over. He became very busy, and I also had children and other things, so I couldn't visit your place anymore. Such nostalgic times. Back then, as our company was expanding, the CEO was incredibly busy. He didn't even have time to return home and often stayed at the company. As we continued to be busy, we became distant without realizing. I was sad when Aunt Alice stopped coming over. Dad was also hardly home. Megan continued, her expression as innocent as it was in the past. I asked Mom when will Aunt Alice come home next, but she told me Aunt Alice is busy now and can't come. Be a good girl and wait patiently. I see. I'm sorry for making you feel lonely. So I behaved well and studied hard. I thought if I did, Aunt Alice would come to see me. Tears started to fall from Megan's eyes. Then, as if regaining the honesty of her childhood, she started to tell me about various things that had happened to her. The time she was scolded at a branch office during her training after joining the company because she couldn't work well. How she had never been scolded before and in her panic had inadvertently used her status as the CEO's daughter, which made things irreparable. Since then, everyone started fearing her and she couldn't be trained right. Now she had a hard time getting a grasp of her job. Without the title of being the CEO's daughter, she would just be a person who couldn't do her job right. She was scared, and this led to a vicious cycle of resorting to using her title again. I stroked Megan's back as she wept while telling her story. I'm sorry, I should have listened to you sooner. I'm sorry it took me this long. Megan lifted her tear-soaked face. Aunt Alice, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being a bad girl. No, Megan, you're a good girl. You just made a little mistake. It's okay. We will fix it together from now on. I held sobbing Megan's shoulder and continued to stroke her head for a while. Since that day, Megan had changed astonishingly. She realized that to gain recognition from those around her, she needed to build trust through her strength, not her title. Seeing Megan open up to me, the other employees started to approach her little by little. Seeing this, it seemed that Mr. Turner was relieved. Miss Ives, I can't thank you enough. You've been a tremendous help to both generations of our family. No, to the entire company. Please don't praise me too much. I just want to be of help to the younger generation. Then Mr. Turner jested with a tone reminiscent of his younger days. As expected of our company mother, we look forward to your continued support. I returned a smile to the president. There are only a few years left until my retirement. Until then, in this place, I'll continue to be everyone's mother. I made up my mind once again.
Good morning. It seems like it's going to rain this afternoon. I'll turn on the dehumidifier to prevent any headaches. I offer flowers to the altar, recalling that smile from days past. I miss you now that you're gone, but I'm living strong. Then, now, and always. I'm Kathy, 29 years old. I've been married and living with my husband's family for 6 years now. I was raised in a household with some old-fashioned beliefs, and I had an arranged marriage as my parents wanted. My husband's family, too, has their fair share of old traditions. There's a slight departure from the common sense of the general public. However, life isn't as stifling as I thought it would be. My father-in-law, a firm head of the family, and my mother-in-law, who occasionally spouts strange things but is harmless, treated me kindly. My husband, Andy, is busy with the family business. We're not exactly a sweet couple, and I feel a bit disappointed that he isn't keen on having kids. But overall, we had a good relationship. That was until my father-in-law left this world. Oh, Kathy, you're daydreaming again. The weather's getting weird, too. It's so gloomy and damp every day. Talking to a photo every day is so morbid. My mother-in-law never ceases to complain. Good morning. When I went out to the garden, I saw my father-in-law's favorite flowers, so I cut some before the rain starts, I said with a forced smile. I didn't want to spoil my happy morning mood here, but my mother-in-law looked even more annoyed. What's this? You're making a big show of offering flowers. You just want to say you're taking care of things, right? Is this some sort of snub at me? I sigh inwardly. Honestly, you really don't have any common sense. Even if the forecast says it's going to rain, turning on the dehumidifier beforehand is just a waste of electricity. Who do you think pays for that? Since my father-in-law passed away, she seems to have lost her filter. What used to be occasional nitpicking has significantly increased. At first, I thought it was a way of venting her loneliness after losing her husband, but lately she seems to be looking for me just to criticize. Andy asked me to wash and dry the shirt he's going to use for his business trip starting tomorrow. Drying it here is the fastest. But with the weather turning rainy this afternoon, it's hard to air dry clothes naturally. Blaming Andy for your inability to prepare in advance. How embarrassing for a wife as clumsy as you, to be able to claim you're a good housewife despite your mistakes. How awful. My mother-in-law's face twisted even more, but I'm not neglecting my chores. It's impossible to prepare for a sudden laundry request in advance. However, she persistently nitpicks without considering such circumstances. She said it's gloomy and damp earlier, but I feel the same way about her. She's much more troublesome than the sticky humidity. What's more, she's always exaggerating the daytime events to my husband, always painting me as the bad guy. Initially, my husband ignored it, but recently he's been saying, "It's annoying, make her stop," or "Isn't it your fault?" and getting in a bad mood. As a result, there's no sign of my mother-in-law's criticisms or her false tattling stopping. On the contrary, they seem to be escalating. But if I confront her, her shrill voice only gets louder, reaching frequencies that echo outside the house. In the end, letting her do as she pleases and apologizing to let the storm pass was the most peaceful way to deal with it. I'm exhausted. I'm sorry, father-in-law, for showing you such a mess. My mother-in-law's face twisted even more, but I'm not neglecting my chores. When my father-in-law collapsed from a stroke, my mother-in-law said, "I don't have the strength for caregiving," and did almost nothing. during changes in the weather or season, my father-in-law, who suffered from headaches and joint pain, would be grateful to me for my strenuous efforts to maintain a constant temperature and humidity. He would warmly smile and thank me, saying, "It's quite different now, thank you." As someone who had lost her real father in her childhood, I was initially confused about how to interact with my father-in-law, but he was very gentle, even while being steadfast. I feel like he thanked me in various situations. He was someone who was not stingy with his words towards anyone, and was positive about everyday events. What stands out to me is when I was still new to the household, before I became accustomed to the kitchen, I once forgot to turn on the stove while concentrating and learning the household seasoning for cooking. When it was time for the meal, I realized I hadn't cooked the potatoes. I braced myself, expecting to be scolded, but my father-in-law laughed it off and said, "Human beings feel a meal is even more delicious when they're hungry, so let's wait patiently." He even went on to thank me for always providing delicious meals. In this way, he lightened my spirits, and this attitude did not change even when he fell ill. Even during my first experience with caregiving, which I wasn't proficient in, he kept telling me, "You're a lifesaver, thank you." He was like my real father. That's why, even though time has passed since he passed away, I still find myself taking to his picture every morning, and I'm concerned about the room temperatures and humidity before it rains. My mother-in-law, who's become more harsh, and I sought solace in his smiling picture. Hey, what's this, all wrinkled and covered in fur? One night while cleaning up after dinner, my husband Andy came holding a shirt I had ironed and put it in the suitcase in the evening. "And what about our bedroom? It's a mess, and the stuff for tomorrow's trip is all scattered. What the hell? I told you I'm leaving early tomorrow." Andy has also changed since my father-in-law passed away. He has become harsher. I truly realized that my father-in-law was the pillar of this household. Andy threw the shirt at me with a stern face, and I was surprised. "Wait, what? What do you mean the stuff is all scattered?" "Hold on, this..." From the wide open window, the rain was pouring in sideways, drenching the curtains. And on the bed, the luggage had spilled out of the suitcase and was scattered about. In a hurry, I closed the window and crashed down to wipe up the poured-in rain. "Huh? Brownie?" In the corner of the room, there was a community cat, Brownie. "Poor thing, you're shaking so much. Come here, I'll dry you off." Despite the disastrous state of the room, I couldn't ignore the drenched cat, so I gently wrapped Brownie in a towel. "I know you're not the kind of kitten who would do something like this." Holding Brownie, who was purring lightly, I consoled him. "Hey, what are you doing?" Then I heard Andy's irritated voice from behind. "That's a stray cat, isn't it? Don't use a towel on something like that, and that thing probably made the mess in the room. Get it out of here now." Behind the disgruntled Andy was my mother-in-law. "What a mess! The room, the stuff for the trip, everything is all messed up. And what's that dirty thing? Using a fine towel on that is unbelievable. I'm speechless at your lack of common sense." She's hardly speechless, she's triumphantly blabbing. "Prioritizing a cat that broke into the house and caused this mess over the actual disaster, you must be out of your mind." My mother-in-law's voice, louder than ever, made me finally retort. "With all due respect, mother-in-law, it wasn't Brownie who made the mess in the room, right?" "Huh! That can't be." My mother-in-law defended herself, but it didn't make sense no matter how you look at it. Because the shirt that Andy brought was wrinkled and covered in fur, but it wasn't wet. If a soaked cat caused a mess, the shirt and the luggage should be wet too, shouldn't they? Exactly, the stuff on the bed was messy, but not wet at all. Rather, only the shirt was covered in fur. The rest seemed merely scattered. And I had the suitcase closed and placed next to the shelf. It would be impossible for a cat to move it to the bed, unlock it, and mess it up. That's not all. My mother-in-law's hand was covered in several band-aids. She didn't have them in the morning, so it's proof she injured herself in the afternoon. If my guess is correct, those scratches are from being scratched by Brownie. The windows are intact, and so are the screens. How on earth could the cat have gotten in on its own? Moreover, only where this little one was is it soaking wet. There aren't even any wet footprints. Without someone deliberately doing it, this couldn't have happened. As I talked while keeping eye contact, my mother-in-law, Kathy, backed away inch by inch. Her demeanor was almost as if she were confessing her guilt. "And the bandage on your hand." But before I could finish my sentence, my husband's voice boomed. "Shut up!" Caught off guard by his loud voice, I cringed, to which my husband, Andy, spat out angrily. "I don't care. Just kick it out and clean up quickly. Don't make me repeat myself. I have to get up early tomorrow. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. Get it ready fast." Surprised by Andy's outrage, I pushed back. "It does matter. This is over the top no matter how you look at it. This isn't something you can brush off as a mere prank.
We need to take it seriously. I couldn't hide my anger at Kathy's excessive behavior, but Andy was dismissive. Don't mess with me. It's your job to sort out the house issues. Do I ever bring my work problems home and complain? No, right? Even after coming home tired, I can't rest every single day. I have to listen to such unpleasant stuff. I'm fed up. He vented out furiously. It seemed as though his pent-up frustration at having to listen to my daily complaints about Kathy was overflowing all at once, but that wasn't fair. I never grumbled to Andy. It was Kathy who kept feeding him lies. Why am I the one getting blamed? I'm having a hard time too. I opened my mouth again, but Andy, still angry, grabbed my arm and dragged me to the front door. That's enough. Go somewhere else. If you weren't here, my mom wouldn't have anything to complain about. Before I could even put on my shoes, I was pushed outside. I heard the sound of a lock clicking into place. Hey, wait a minute. Open up, Andy. Hey, hey. I called out in a loud voice, but there was no response from Andy. Only the sound of Kathy's malicious laughter. Even though I couldn't see her, I could easily imagine Kathy's spiteful smile. Just like that dirty stray cat, perhaps a stray daughter-in-law would be more appropriate. Serves you right. After that, the light in the entrance was turned off and I was left out in the pouring rain, holding the cat in my arms. I can't believe it. After I was locked out of our house and had to take refuge at my parents' place, and a few days later, I was summoned again to the house. They were a historically significant family, so my mother cautioned me not to get divorced and apologize. However, I was feeling down. I'm probably going to be scolded. I thought about having a discussion, but now I might as well say that I want a divorce. He hasn't contacted me since that day. Feeling heavy-hearted when I arrived, I found a room full of relatives, and the atmosphere was more daunting than I had anticipated. In contrast, Kathy and Andy, whom I hadn't seen for a while, looked triumphant. Could this be about disowning me? This is a bigger deal than I thought. I became even more nervous, but the head of the main house, who would be my grandfather-in-law, said something unexpected. The reason I gathered everyone here today is to discuss the inheritance. We plan to switch to distribution, keeping up with the times. This was not at all what I expected. I was relieved that it seemed I wasn't going to be blamed. On the other hand, Kathy and Andy became excited, pushing their way through the relatives. How will the assets be divided specifically? What about the house we're living in? There's land, vacation homes, and a company too. Kathy brazenly put forth her greedy demands. She whispered to Andy that he should seize this opportunity to gain control of the business given his promotion. Andy didn't seem entirely against the idea. Seeing their shamelessly happy faces, I decided once and for all to go through with the divorce. I could easily imagine my future with the wealth-seeking Andy and Kathy, who would accuse me of being a freeloader and gold digger. It would be better to cut ties cleanly. Right now, they would likely be happy to divorce. But then, there's no property for you two to inherit. My grandfather-in-law rejected Kathy and Andy's expectations with a heavy sigh. What? The patriarch spoke to the two of them, who were taken aback. I will bequeath my assets to Kathy. There's none for you two. Having my name abruptly called, I was at a loss for words, and my in-laws were flabbergasted. You must be joking. A wife doesn't have such rights, and she's run away from home abruptly without a shred of responsibility. A failure who doesn't even bear children. We were thinking of disowning her, right, Andy? Yeah, it's a hassle to have a dispute at home. If we don't have enough hands to manage the house and the business, hiring people is more efficient and it's better for our mental health, I think. They coldly discarded me. Then the patriarch, who had heard the statements, pulled out an envelope from his pocket. A will? The patriarch solemnly read out to the stunned couple, the will of his son, my father-in-law. In the event of a dispute after his death, all borrowed property should be returned to the main family. However, in regard to his wife, Kathy, she continued to receive the protection of the main family. In other words, no matter what happens, I would always be able to live with the support of the main family. What? That's a lie, right? My husband was speechless and my mother-in-law was in shock. The patriarch shrugged his shoulders. Kathy, I plan to bequeath you the property you need to live. If I lend it, it will tie you to this house, but if I bequeath it, you can live alone even if you divorce. Or you could remain our daughter-in-law and remarry if you want. I was also adopted, so I can somewhat understand your position. As the main family, we will respect your decision, so don't worry. The patriarch who said this and laughed resembled my father-in-law in my memory. Well, wait! That's too much. What did we do? She ran away on her own. We are the victims here. She argued vehemently that it was me, the wife, who was in the wrong. There is no need to add insult to injury. Huh? What are you talking about? As my mother-in-law tilted her head, an unexpected person appeared in the living room at the patriarch's door. The elderly neighbor from next door? To my surprised face, the cheerful man showed me an envelope that was identical to the will I had seen earlier. I was asked by your father-in-law to contact the main family if something happened at home. When I saw them kick out the wife alone, barefoot and penniless on a pouring night, I didn't think it was right, so I stepped in. Right, Brownie? The old man, carrying Brownie in his arms, handed him over to me. Thank you for the shoes and transportation money that time. I couldn't personally thank you, and you went out of your way to consider this. As I thanked him, hugging the warm Brownie, he brushed it off. It's give and take. We help each other when in trouble. He used to say, he was a good man. That you were going through a tough time after he was gone is a well-known fact to the neighbors. You held up well. My eyes grew hot. My father-in-law, till his last, had sown seeds of kindness. Thanks to that, my neighbors were on my side. Even now, do you insist on being the victims? The patriarch asked in a stern voice. My husband and mother-in-law who were watching our exchange with their mouths agape. If you can't respect someone as an outsider, then you should leave, and you don't need to come to the company anymore. The two of you start over somewhere else and become people who understand shame. At the patriarch's roar, my husband and mother-in-law shrank back. Under the cold gaze of the patriarch and the gathered relatives, my husband and mother-in-law looked like they were sitting on a bed of nails. Afterwards, under the supervision of the main family, my mother-in-law and husband left the house. My husband struggled to find a new job, and they seemed to have started working part-time together. As for me, I divorced, but chose to stay at home. With the patriarch's permission, I am now taking care of my father-in-law's memorial monument. The main family also shows consideration, telling me to consult them if there are changes such as remarriage. We've received some peaches in season from next door. Let's eat them together, as it's their first harvest year. Here, a little share for you too, Brownie. I think I will cherish these peaceful days surrounded by my father-in-law's portrait and the smiles of my neighbors.